The War of Three Kingdoms. Chapter 1. A World Divided. Solaris, the Kingdom of Light. Solaris was a land of sun and gold. The people were kind and strong. Queen Alina ruled Solaris. She believed in peace and honor. Her son Leo was a brave young knight. He wanted to protect the land. Solaris loved the sky, the light, and the truth. Noctra, the Kingdom of Darkness. Noctra was cold and full of shadows. The people were silent and secret. King Varek ruled Noctra. He wanted more power. His daughter, Nera, was smart and fast. She knew many secrets. Noctra loved the night, the moon, and the unknown. Thundar, the Kingdom of Storms. Thundar was wild and loud. The people were strong and proud. King Roder ruled Thundar. He loved war and glory. His son, Cain, was a fighter. He was not afraid of anything. Thundar loved the wind, the rain, and the fight. A time of trouble. One day, a mysterious fire burned the border between Solaris and Noctra. No one knew who started it. Solaris said, Noctra did it. Noctra said, we are not to blame. Thundar said, maybe we should fight them both. And so a great war began. Chapter 2. The First Battle. The sun rose over the land. It was quiet. But in the fields near Solaris, many soldiers stood. They wore gold armor and held sharp swords. Prince Leo looked at his men. We fight for peace, he said. We fight to protect our home. In the dark woods, Noctra's army waited. They moved like shadows. Princess Nera was ready. She looked at the sky. This is not our war, she said, but we will not run. Suddenly a loud horn sounded. It was the army of Thundar. King Roder stood on a tall horse. My sword is ready, he shouted. Let the storm begin. The battle begins. The soldiers of Solaris marched first. They moved fast and strong. They met the soldiers of Noctra in the forest. The soldiers of Solaris' mass swords hit shields. Arrows flew in the air. It was loud. It was scary. Leo saw Nera on the hill. He shouted, why are we fighting? Let's talk. But Nera did not answer. She turned and ran into the trees. Then Thundar's army arrived. Thunder rolled in the sky. The wind blew hard. Cain, the son of King Roder, ran into battle with a big axe. He laughed and said, this is fun. A hard day. Many soldiers fell. Many were tired. The sun went down. The battle stopped. Leo looked at the field. So much pain, he said. Nera hid in the woods. This is not right, she whispered. Cain cleaned his axe. We will win, he smiled. But the war was not over. This was only the beginning. The War of Three Kingdoms. Chapter 3. The Secret Plans. The next morning, after the battle, the three kingdoms were not ready to stop. The war was just beginning. Prince Leo sat in his tent. He looked at the map of the three kingdoms. I need help, he said quietly. We cannot fight alone. In Noctra, Princess Nera was thinking the same thing. We must find the old magic, she said. Only then can we win this war. A hidden power in the dark land of Thundar. King Roder stood in front of his army. We will not stop, he shouted. We have the power of the storm. No one can defeat us. But in secret, Cain, King Roder's son, spoke to a strange man. The man wore a black robe and carried a strange book. "This is the book of the Forgotten Ones," the man said. "It can give you more power, but it is dangerous." Cain looked at the book. "I will take the risk," he said with a smile. He wanted to win the war, no matter the cost. The old magic. Meanwhile, Leo heard stories of a magic stone in the mountains of Solaris. It was said to give its owner great power. "This is our chance," Leo thought. "If we find the stone, we can end this war." But Nera was also searching for power. She heard of an old spell that could control the Matin stones. "The Matin stones are the key," she said. "If we control them, we control the war." The three kingdoms were now racing to find these powerful secrets, but they did not know the truth. The more power they tried to find, the more they would hurt each other. A dangerous path. The land was full of dangers. Animals, wild magic, and enemies made the journey hard. Prince Leo went first, leading a group of soldiers to the mountains. "We must find the stone before anyone else does," he said. Princess Nera went to the old ruins of Noctra's past, searching for the Matin stones. "I will not fail," she whispered to herself. Cain, with his dark book, went to the stormy mountains. He wanted more power. The book was a dangerous thing, but Cain didn't care. "The storm will give me the strength to rule," he said, holding the book tightly. A plan to destroy. The three leaders did not trust each other, but they did not know they were being watched. An old enemy, one who had lived in the shadows for many years, was watching them. This enemy had its own plan. The Dark One had once ruled all three kingdoms, but many years ago he was defeated. Now he wanted to return and take everything back. He sent his servants to follow Leo, Nera, and Cain. They would make sure the kingdoms would destroy themselves. "The time is near," the Dark One said in a whisper. "The three kingdoms will fall, and I will rise again." This chapter ends with all three leaders heading towards different paths, but they don't know that their journeys are leading them into a trap. Will they succeed in finding the power they seek, or will they fall into the Dark One's hands? The War of Three Kingdoms. Chapter 4. The Battle for Power. The search for power had led the three kingdoms into a dangerous path. Each leader believed they were doing the right thing, but they did not know the Dark One was watching them. The Magic Stone of Solaris. Prince Leo had reached the mountains of Solaris. The cold wind blew strongly, but he did not stop. "We must find the stone," he said to his soldiers. "It is the key to winning this war." As they climbed the mountains, they saw something strange. The mountain was filled with old statues and ancient ruins. The magic stone was somewhere here. Leo felt it. He could almost hear the stone calling him. After hours of searching, they found a cave. Inside the cave, the stone was glowing. "This is it," Leo said, his eyes shining with hope. He stepped forward and picked up the stone. Suddenly, a loud sound filled the air. The cave started shaking. Leo held the stone tightly. "It's too late now," he whispered. "The war will end with this." The Metin stones of Noctra. Princess Nera was in the ruins of Noctra. The old stone walls were covered in strange symbols. She was close to finding the Metin stones, the key to great power. "I must find the spell," Nera said, holding a map in her hands. She had learned that the Metin stones could control the forces of the earth and sky. With this power, Noctra would rise to become the greatest kingdom. But as she looked at the symbols on the wall, she felt a strange coldness. The air was thick with magic. The ground trembled. "Something is wrong," she whispered. As Nira walked deeper into the ruins, she saw the Metin stones glowing. But they were not alone. The stones began to crack and glow brighter. A shadow moved across the walls. "Who is there?" Nira called out. But there was no answer. Instead, the shadows surrounded her. The Dark One had sent his servants. The storms of Thundar, Cain, had reached the stormy mountains of Thundar. The wind howled around him as he followed the dark book's instructions. The power of the storm was all around him. He could feel it in his body, in his bones. "This power will be mine," he shouted into the wind. But as he opened the dark book, he felt something terrible. The book began to burn in his hands, and the sky grew darker. The clouds began to swirl, and the lightning struck the ground. Cain's heart raced. He did not know what he had unleashed. "Help!" he cried. But no one was there to help him. The storm grew stronger, and Cain fell to his knees. His eyes burned with pain. The power of the storm was too much for him to control. The Dark One's plan. The Dark One smiled in the shadows, watching the three leaders. His plan was working. The leaders were each searching for the power they needed, but they did not know the true danger. "They think they are in control," the Dark One laughed. "But soon they will fall." The Dark One's servants moved silently through the night. They watched Leo, Nira, and Cain, waiting for the right moment to strike. They were ready to take the power for themselves. The first choice. As Leo held the magic stone, he felt its power, but he also felt the darkness growing inside him. The stone was not just power, it was also dangerous. It could destroy everything. "I have a choice," Leo thought. "I must decide what to do with this power. Should I use it to end the war, or should I destroy it to save my people?" But the Dark One had more in mind than just the Metin stones and the magic stone. He wanted everything. He wanted to control the entire world, to destroy the three kingdoms and rule forever. Far away, Nira stood before the Metin stones. The shadows were closing in, but she did not give up. "I must control this power," she whispered. "No one can stop me." And Cain, lost in the storm, could not hear the wind anymore. He only heard the Dark One's voice inside his mind. "Use the power," the voice said. "You can be the king. You will have everything." A dangerous path. The three leaders were now at a crossroads. They had found the power they sought, but at what cost? The Dark One was still out there, watching. The storm of war was growing stronger. Would they use the power for good, or would they fall into darkness? The war was not just a battle of armies. It was a battle for the soul of the three kingdoms. The next chapter will reveal what happens when the leaders make their choice. What will they do with the power they hold? Will they save their people, or will they destroy everything they love? The War of Three Kingdoms. Chapter 5. The Choice of Kings. The sun was setting over the three kingdoms, and the clouds in the sky were dark with magic. The three leaders now had the power they sought, but each of them was faced with a terrible choice. The war was no longer just about fighting. It was about what they would do with the power in their hands. Prince Leo's decision. Prince Leo held the glowing magic stone in his hand. The stone felt heavy, not just with power, but with responsibility. Leo had always wanted to protect his people. He had always believed in justice and peace. But now, with this stone, he felt as if he could rule the world. He thought about the battle. He thought about the soldiers who had fallen. He thought about his kingdom and what it needed. "I can end the war," Leo whispered to himself. "I can use this power to make peace." But then he heard another voice inside his head. "No, you can become the ruler of everything," the voice said. "You don't need to fight anymore. You can rule with the power of the stone." Leo closed his eyes and thought about his people. He thought about his father, the king, who had always wanted peace. "I will not use this power to destroy," Leo said, shaking his head. "I will find another way." But the choice was not easy. The power of the stone called to him. It wanted him to use it. Leo had to decide. Would he use the stone for peace, or would he give in to the darkness it promised? Princess Neera's struggle. Far away, Princess Neera stood before the maiden stones. The stones were glowing brightly, and the air around her was thick with magic. Neera could feel the power of the stones in her body, in her soul. She could feel their call. She could feel that with this power, Noctra would become the greatest kingdom in the world. "We will be strong," Neera said, her voice full of confidence. "I can control these stones. I can control the future." But then she remembered the stories her father had told her, the stories of the danger of the Meetin stones, the stories of how they had destroyed kingdoms in the past. "What if I cannot control it?" Neera whispered. "What if the stones control me?" She looked at the glowing stones. The power was so strong. But deep inside, Neera knew the truth. The stones could not bring peace. They could only bring more war. "I cannot let the stones destroy my kingdom," she said. "I will find another way." But would she? Could she resist the power the stones offered? Cain's temptation. In the stormy mountains, Cain stood alone. The winds howled around him, and the dark book burned in his hands. The storm seemed to respond to his emotions. When he felt anger, the winds grew stronger. When he felt fear, the thunder crashed. "This is my power," Cain said, his voice full of pride. "I will control the storm. I will control everything." The voice in his head whispered again. "Use the power, Cain. You will rule the world. The storm will follow you. The kingdom of Thundar will be the strongest." But Cain felt something else, something that he had not felt before. Fear. The power was too strong. He could feel it tearing at his mind, pulling him in different directions. "No," he whispered. "I will not let the storm control me. I will control the storm." But as he spoke, the sky grew darker. The storm grew stronger. Cain felt as though the storm itself was fighting against him. The Dark One's voice filled his mind. "You cannot stop it, Cain," the Dark One said. "You cannot stop the storm. It will destroy you." Cain fell to his knees. He knew the truth. The power he had sought was not a gift. It was a curse. The Dark One's plan unfolds. The Dark One watched the three leaders from the shadows. His plan was working. He had made them believe that they were in control, that they could use the power of the stones to rule. But now he would take it all from them. "They will destroy each other," the Dark One said with a wicked smile, "and I will rise from the shadows to claim everything." He sent his servants to find the three leaders. His servants were shadows, moving silently through the night. They had only one goal: to take the power for themselves. The final battle. The three leaders were on the edge of their decisions. Leo, Nera, and Cain all stood alone, each one faced with the greatest choice of their lives. Leo held the magic stone. Nera stood before the mating stones. Cain, lost in the storm, held the dark book. The Dark One strikes. As the three leaders struggled with their choices, the Dark One made his move. His servants attacked. The world trembled as the three kingdoms fell into chaos. Soldiers fought in the streets. Magic filled the air. The storm raged over Thundar. The meeting stones cracked and glowed in Noctra. The world trembled as the three kingdoms fell into chaos. Soldiers fought in the streets. Magic filled the air. The storm raged over Thundar. The mating stones cracked and glowed in Noctra. The War of Three Kingdoms. Chapter 6. The Final Battle. The three kingdoms were on the brink of destruction. The magic that had been unleashed, the storms and the darkness were taking over everything. It was time for the final battle. The time for choices had passed, and now the fate of the kingdoms rested on the shoulders of the three leaders. The gathering storm. Prince Leo stood at the edge of his kingdom, looking out over the horizon. The skies were dark with magic, and the air was thick with tension. His army was ready, but Leo knew this battle would not be won by force alone. "We must fight for the future," Leo said to his generals, "but we cannot let the power control us. We must use our hearts, not just our swords." But even as he spoke, Leo knew that the Dark One was close. The storm clouds above were a sign that the battle was coming. The kingdoms would clash in one final war, and only one could survive. Nera's resolve. Far away in Noctra, Princess Nera prepared for the war. The Metin stones glowed brighter than ever, and Nera could feel their power calling her. It was a dangerous power, but it was the only way she could protect her people. "I must control this power," Nera whispered, her fingers brushing against the stones. "If I don't, everything will be lost." But she knew the danger. She knew that using the mating stones could destroy her kingdom. The darkness inside them was powerful. The more she used it, the more she could feel the stones pulling her into their grip. "I will fight for my people," Nera said, her voice strong. "I will not let the darkness win." But as she prepared for battle, Nera felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She had to decide whether to use the stones to fight for her kingdom or to destroy them and risk losing everything. Cain's challenge. In the stormy mountains, Cain faced the storm with determination. The dark book still burned in his hands, and the power of the storm was stronger than ever. The winds howled, the lightning flashed, and the thunder crashed. But Cain was not afraid. "I will control the storm," Cain shouted. "I will use its power to win this war." But as the storm raged around him, Cain felt the power slipping from his control. The Dark One's voice filled his mind. "You cannot stop this," the voice said. "The storm is mine now. You are nothing but a puppet." Cain gritted his teeth. He could feel the storm taking over him. The storm was alive, and it was stronger than him. But Cain would not give up. He could not let the storm control him. He had to fight back. "I will not be your puppet," Cain shouted into the wind. "I will fight for my people." But the storm only grew stronger. The Dark One's power was too great. Cain had to make a choice. Could he defeat the storm and save his kingdom, or would he fall to the darkness? The Dark One's last move. The Dark One watched from the shadows. He had controlled everything from the beginning. He had pushed the leaders toward their choices, leading them to the moment of the final battle. And now the time had come. The armies of the Dark One's servants were ready. They were powerful and unstoppable. The kingdoms were divided, the leaders were weak, and the Dark One's magic was stronger than ever. He could feel the leaders struggle. Leo, Nera, and Cain were all fighting their inner demons. They had all tasted the power, but they could not control it. And the Dark One was ready to take everything. "It's time," the Dark One whispered. "They will destroy each other, and I will rise to rule the world." The final battle begins. The armies of the three kingdoms clashed on the battlefield. The air was filled with the sound of swords and shields. The ground shook with the force of the fighting. But it was not just a battle of armies. It was a battle of wills, of choices. Leo led his army with honor, but the magic stone still called to him. Nera stood tall, her eyes glowing with the power of the meeting stones. And Cain stood at the center of the storm, his body shaking with the power of the dark book. They all knew the truth. The war was no longer just about land or power. It was about survival. It was about whether they could control the magic they had unleashed or whether it would destroy them all. Leo's moment of truth. As the battle raged on, Leo felt the magic stone calling him again. It was stronger than ever, and it filled him with power. He could feel the anger and hatred of the enemy, and the stone offered him the chance to end the war. "You can defeat them all," the stone whispered. "You can be the ruler." Leo closed his eyes. He had to make a choice. Would he use the stone to end the war, or would he destroy it to save his people? He had always believed in peace. Could he destroy the stone, even if it meant losing the war? "No," Leo said, shaking his head. "I will not be like the Dark One." With one final decision, Leo crushed the stone beneath his feet. The power inside it faded, and the battlefield grew still. The storm began to die down, and the fighting slowly stopped. Nera's sacrifice. Princess. Nera was in the middle of the battlefield, holding the matin stones in her hands. The stones were glowing brightly, and Nera could feel their power growing stronger. She could use the stones to defeat the enemy, to destroy the Dark One's army. But as she looked at the stones, she felt something change inside her. The darkness inside the stones was growing, and she knew it would destroy her if she kept using them. "I cannot let this power control me," Nera whispered. "I must end this." With one final decision, Nera threw the matin stones into the ground. The stones shattered, and the dark magic vanished. Cain's last stand. Cain stood in the middle of the storm. The winds howled, and the lightning struck around him. But he did not back down. "I will stop this storm," Cain shouted. "I will protect my kingdom." But the storm grew stronger. Cain could feel the power of the Dark One pushing against him. The storm was not just a force of nature. It was a living thing. It was trying to control him, trying to crush his will. "I will not give up," Cain cried. "I will fight for my people." With one final roar, Cain raised the dark book above his head and tore it in half. The storm vanished and the air grew still. The end of the war. The battle was over. The three leaders had made their choices, and the magic was no longer controlling them. The armies of the Dark One had been defeated, and the kingdoms were free. But the war had changed everything. The leaders had lost their power, but they had saved their people. The kingdoms would rebuild, but they would never forget the lesson they had learned. The war was not just about power. It was about the choices we make and the people we fight for.